Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to another episode of Manifesting Muslimah. I'm your host, Zara Pedersen, and in today's episode, we are going to discuss a very sneaky way that shaytan tends to come in to our lives and creates a distance between ourselves and Allah, or at least causes enough of a disturbance or friction that makes us question certain things. Okay, and it's a very sneaky little thing, and a lot of us fall victim to it. Okay, before we get into that, very quickly, if you can hear the fan in the background, I don't even know if you can hear it when I'm talking or if you can only hear it when I'm quiet, but I have a fan on in the background. We have officially entered now like the beginning of like the hottest seasons or the hottest season in Sicily, and it hit us so quickly, so hard over the weekend. And honestly, at this point, I'm just trying not to skin myself so that I can breathe. So I have to have a fan on, and I think I've done this like for the last like couple of years, like every summer I'm like, I'm so sorry, like if you can hear it, but really I am. I don't know how it hears on your end. I'm hoping that the microphone is pretty good at sort of filtering out that noise, but in case you can hear it, I'm very, very hot, and it's just the beginning of the heat season now, or the summer season, and it's only going to get hotter. So that fan is probably going to be my best friend in the next few months. And so if you can hear it, hello, Mr. Fan, thank you for cooling down Zara, but what we're not going to do is scream and shout about the fan, because that fan is saving my life. Okay. So, but just to give you that little heads up in case you were thinking something's different with the audio, that's what's different. Okay, so let's get into the episode, because this is something I'm actually quite honestly, I feel like in my membership group, in that community over there, I have that conversation quite often with the ladies, because I catch them also sometimes kind of falling into this trap. And I also have to be careful not to fall into that trap. But I think because I'm so aware of it, it's easier for myself to sort of like catch myself on it. And so I can pull myself out of it. But I think a lot of people don't understand that it's a trap to begin with. And that is when we say, if this, then that. Okay, let me explain, because right now you're probably thinking, well, like that doesn't even sound like, that sounds harmless. What are you talking about? I say that all the time. So let me explain exactly what it is that I mean. Okay, in this case, what we're not doing is necessarily referring to the future. We're not talking about if this happens, then that. We're not looking at like possible outcomes for the future and stuff like that, of trying to plan ahead or trying to troubleshoot ahead of time or anything like that. What we're talking about is if this then that in the past. Okay, so what we're specifically doing here is saying, if I hadn't done that, or if this hadn't happened, then this thing would have been, or that would have been, or that other thing would have never had a chance of whatever. That's what we're talking about today. Okay, and that is the trap that we have to be very, very careful of, because it is a way for shaitan to sneak in ways that feel harmless to us, but can create a lot of discourse in our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what actually happens when we're doing this is, it can start off, as I said, quite harmless. We're thinking back on our lives, and there'll be like a couple of things here and there that maybe we're not the most pleased with. Maybe we were hoping for a different outcome. Maybe we thought things were going to go differently. Maybe we never expected that person to follow through on whatever it was, and because you didn't expect it, then you weren't prepared or whatever. There will always be, for a lot of us, certain places in time in our past where we have almost a feeling of regret, I think is the best way to put it, that we're looking back on it with a sense of regret of like, I should have done things differently, or if I had been more aware, then the things would have been different. So there is that sense of almost like I could have changed it. This was within my ability to change this thing. And so we get stuck we get stuck. The if mindset, going backwards, if then, if this, then that mindset, when we're looking back, keeps us stuck. It stops us from properly being able to surrender and release that part of our life and move on from it, because we feel like we've not lived up to that full potential of that moment, which is fine. We can all have that and know that we can grow. But what we can't do is hold on to it to the point where it's hard for us to move on from it. And so where we get stuck on it. And a lot of people do this, right? Oh, if I hadn't focused so much on my education or my school in my 20s, then maybe I would have met my partner and I wouldn't be single in my 30s, 40s, 50s. If I had been more vocal about setting my boundaries, maybe I would have a better relationship with my mum and dad today than if I didn't. If this, that, and the other. And we'll all have certain things where we feel like we're being pulled back because of these certain moments in time. But the truth about these moments, and this is what we all have to recognize, is that if it wasn't because Allah willed it to happen, it would never have been. And even more so is we never have that kind of control to begin with. Yes, we have authority over ourselves because we have free will. But what we have to remember, that even though we have free will, Allah still has to allow things to happen. Allah still has to give his permission for things to happen. So if Allah gave his permission for certain things to happen, even if we don't find them to be the most pleasing, for whatever reason, it is still within the will of Allah that this happened in the time that it happened in, or however it happened. And this is a key moment for us to hold on to so that we can release it and say, but Allah allowed it to happen, meaning there has to be something on the other side of it, meaning I can grow from it, I can learn from it, I can do better. There's value in it because Allah allowed it to happen. And by my being stuck in that moment with the if mentality, I'm questioning essentially Allah's like the correctness of Allah in allowing that to happen, as if we had the control of it, like we were the creators of our own reality, as if we have that ultimate control in our own life. And this is how shaytan creeps in, right? Because number one, he gives us the illusion within our minds, within our heads, that we can control more than we can. That's the first thing. He gives us the illusion of like, that was your fault and you're the one who messed it all up, and see, Allah doesn't take care of you, he's not providing for you, because why would he allow that to happen? Clearly he's trying to punish you, whatever, right? We've all been there, stuck in that circle of that waswas, when shaitan really creeps in and he makes us question our very reality and our place in this dunya in accordance to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it's a small door, and we're not always looking at it and thinking, oh, I should never say if, because if is so different, it's a horrible thing to say. We're thinking of it as like, but this is, everybody does that, and we do. But we have to understand the mindset it opens up, even if it's just like by a smidge, a little crack in the doorway, shaitan can get in. And this is what we have to be careful of. So the first thing, as I said, is he makes you believe that you're in control of much more than what you're actually in control of. Okay, so he creates this mindset within you where you have failed and where Allah has allowed the failure to happen, because now Allah doesn't care about you. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is he's going to keep you stuck, and keeping you stuck, what does that do? It makes you unable to focus on the outcome, the lesson, the growth, the potential in that happening to begin with, because it stops you from accepting it, or at least it makes it very difficult for you to accept it. So there'll always be that friction. There will always be this sort of like pushback on that part of your life, where you will always think you had a different life coming and somehow you were robbed of it, and as a result you cannot move on. Even if the world is moving on, and in the 3D you moved on, in the mind, in the spirit, in the heart, you're still stuck in that moment. And now I know I know a few people in my personal life who are there and are still there, and it's really sad. And I know some people as well who have experienced something in their life, and They haven't moved on. Even if it happened a decade ago, 2 decades ago, being around them, you kind of feel like at that moment, they allowed for the very essence of who they are to be sucked away just because they are not ready to give up their idea of how it should have looked. And my darling, that is the exact opposite of surrender, right? In that, right there, in that moment, that is you disagreeing with Allah. And that's a dangerous thing to do, right? You're allowed to question, ask Allah why, all of these things, but the disagreeing or basically being stuck because you believe Allah did wrong, that is a very dangerous road to go down. And that is what a lot of people tend to sort of like fall into when they take that moment and allow shaytan to use that little crack in the door to slither into their minds and in their hearts and say, see, Allah messed it up for you because Allah wasn't there for you when you needed him. And now look at your life. You don't have those things. You don't have those people. The things didn't go the way that you wanted it to. Allah doesn't want you to be happy. So clearly he's not going to give it to you. And what does that do? It creates discourse in your heart from you to Allah. It creates that doubt. Does Allah really love me? He doesn't want me to have it. Look, he already showed it to me when this thing happened. You know, he doesn't want me to be happy. He doesn't want me to be successful. And because you're so stuck in that, you neglect to see, or you fail to see the possible lesson, the possible growth, the possible betterment in the relationship that you could have had with Allah because of that thing, right? And that is the danger of the if then that, you know, a mentality, or sort of like being stuck in that. And listen, there are small ways we can do it, and then there are big ways of doing it. This is why I say, you know, we will all continuously do it. I still do it even though I'm aware of it. We all fall into that trap, like, oh, I should have done that. Oh, I should have done that. And we will all do it. It's not to say you can never say that. You can never do that. What I'm saying is, be aware that you don't fall into the trap of it. Be aware that you're not allowing shaitan to use that to his advantage, to sneakily get into your life and create discourse. That's what I'm saying to you. And if you're already finding yourself in situations in your life where you're actually feeling stuck in something that happened in the past, and you'll know if this is you, a lot of us have this, where there's like one specific thing, one specific moment, one specific decision, one specific person that came in or out of our life. And that thing right there, that was our reason to say, I'm just really never going to forgive myself for it. Like, I'm never really going to move on from it, because if I hadn't done that, then this thing would have come sooner, or this thing would have never arrived, or this, that, and the other. It's such a slippery slope. Because once we allow that kind of thinking, we are now focusing on all the things that we shouldn't be focusing on. The if then that mentality is fairy tale. It's a fairy tale land, because we are not masters of time. So we cannot go back in time and change it. If there was an actual thing that Allah had given us, where we had, like, you've got 3 lifelines or 3 times that you can go back and change something in your life if you feel like you did something wrong or whatever, and you can go back and change it. Fair enough, but that's not how the dunya is. That's not how Allah created the world to be. He gave us free will in that moment, in the now. We have the present, that is it, to make as rational a decision as possible. But because we are flawed, we are going to make sometimes stupid mistakes. Sometimes it's influenced by other people. Sometimes it's directly as a result of other people's actions, and not necessarily from ourselves. Sorry, I just bumped the microphone if you heard that. And we have to find ways to accept that when certain things happen, even if it's something we don't necessarily like, it is only because Allah allowed it to be. It is only because Allah gave his permission for that thing to happen. And because of that, we have to understand, since everything good comes from Allah and everything bad is from ourselves, that if Allah allowed it to be, then it's because there's good in it. There's khair in it, there's barakah in it, but we are the ones who have to look for it. We're the ones who have to be aware of that. And we cannot be aware of it if we're constantly looking at it from a place of regret or shame or guilt or whatever else comes from shaitan in that sense, okay? One of the things that I want you to be aware of, and the reason why I'm mentioning it, as I said, is because I don't want you to be stuck, and I don't want it to be a thing that keeps you stuck in a moment in time to the point where there's resentment from you towards Allah, which happens. It happens. And again, like, I've met quite a few people who are stuck in that. And I know you know a few people, if you're not that person yourself, right? Where something happened and shaitan crept his little way in there, and now you're stuck. You cannot move on from it. It is a part of your life that is sort of like, it should have been different. And you're digging your heels in the ground and you're saying, Allah did it wrong. Allah did it wrong. It wasn't supposed to be this way. If Allah wanted me to be happy, then it would have been different. So clearly Allah doesn't like me. Clearly Allah is ignoring me. Clearly, you see how dangerous those thoughts are? Do you see how dangerous it is? Do you see how absolutely damaging it is to think these thoughts about our Creator, who only wants success for us, right? That is why I don't want you to be stuck there. Again, as I said, if it's like little things and you can laugh about it and whatever, oh my God, yeah, I'm so stupid, I shouldn't have made that joke, but well, there we go. Now I know for a different time, whatever, right? And even with like the big decisions, the big things in life, I've got lots of things in my life where like huge decisions where I'm like, oh gosh, I can't believe I did that. But instead of thinking back on it with that regret, like there's regret in like, I will ask Allah for forgiveness, yes, but there's not regret in like, I will have sleepless nights and, resent Allah for allowing those things to happen or anything. Rather, there's almost a sense of like gratitude, number one, that I'm still Muslim today, but also number two, that is what has made me who I am today, because I took the lessons from those moments and chose to use them as tools to grow, to learn from, rather than things that could have held me back, right? And that's the difference. So if you're going to look into your past, which again, we're all going to do, right? And there's moments in your past where you're like, oh, that's not really necessarily part of my highlight reel. Don't look at it as like, oh, I should have done something different. And like with that sense of that kind of regret, look at it from the perspective of, and what can I learn from it? How can I use that to grow today? What can I do different should that happen again, or like something similar come into my life? And that is how you use those moments to the benefit, rather than to allow shaitan to really hold on to you and pull you down with him. I think one of the things, and this is just like a reminder for all of us, is when we think about shaitan in general, we think the way that shaitan is going to come into our lives is that he's going to make us transgress in these major ways, like, oh, but I don't drink alcohol, I don't commit zina, I don't gamble, I don't prostitute myself, I don't whatever. Like we're thinking of like these huge mega sins, and in reality it's the little things, it's the little ways that shaitan comes in. The big sins like that, yeah, he can also do that, but shaitan is clever. Shaitan is clever, and he knows how to trick us to get to that point, right? And he's not going to start off with here's some alcohol. He's going to start off with slowly and gradually kind of picking at you, right? Until he's sort of like picked off your entire armor and protection little by little over years, sometimes, to the point where eventually you may pick up that bottle of alcohol because, oh, what's the point anyway? Or doing something completely different because, again, what's the point anyway? And we have to remember that, especially for us who are believers, who pray 5 times a day, who read our Quran, who fast during Ramadan, who have, like, our deen feels strong to us. We feel like, no, I am a believer. I believe in Allah, and I'm a good Muslim, or however you want to sort of like say it in your own world, right? We feel secure in that, and we're like, no, I would never pick up a bottle of alcohol, whether for the first time or again, is like irrelevant, right? But there's like that certainty of like, oh, I'm never going to do that again because I love Allah too much or whatever. Shaitan knows that. So of course he's going to come in from the little cracks here and there, right? And we all have them. We all have them. When none of us are like, none of us are safe from any like of having those cracks. We will all have them. For some of us, it's because again, like we're stuck in something in the past. For some of us, it's our egos. For some of us, it's our partners. For some of us, it's something completely different. But the truth is that we all have it, right? And if it is for you that it's like, oh, I'm stuck in this one thing in the past. Shaitan sees that and he knows that, and he's going to slither his way in there and use that to his advantage. And it starts off so small and it's so innocent looking, right? So small and so innocent looking. And then gradually it just kind of becomes, oh, I'm actually really annoyed by it. Oh, I didn't know how annoyed I was by that thing. Oh, I'm living now in so much regret because it happened. Oh my God, if it hadn't happened, just imagine where I would be right now. And it's just growing gradually and gradually and gradually. And that's what he does. He starts small and builds it up, especially for those of us who have, yaqeen, who have our deen, who have that faith in Allah. He's not going to come in, with a wrecking ball and take us down that way, because he knows he can't. He can't. He has to be far more sneaky with it. And that's the dangers of shaitan and why we have to constantly protect ourselves from it. And that is also why we have to be careful with what is actually going on in our minds, the kind of conversations we're having with ourselves, the kind of conversations we even potentially could be having with Allah, where we're potentially planting little seeds of doubt, frustration, anger, and we're allowing it to stay. Right? It's not that we can never feel a moment of frustration or a moment of anger or whatever, because we all do. We're all human. But it's the question of not allowing it to plant its seeds and stay. Don't let it make a home there. Don't actively allow yourself, essentially, to build a wall between you and Allah. That is what that does. It'll build a wall between you and Allah, and as that wall keeps growing and becoming bigger and bigger and taller, eventually you're like, I can't even see Allah. I don't even see Allah. So he's clearly not seeing me either. So clearly I'm just going to do whatever I want. And it's the little thing. And I know it sounds so innocent, doesn't it? I'm just thinking back on my life and so what? Am I not allowed to have regrets? Absolutely you are. Just don't live in it. Don't make that your, don't feed it. And if you're going to have regrets, look back on it with a sense of, what can I change for the future? How can I learn from it? And don't allow it to become this pivotal moment for you where it's like, at this moment, I lost myself. At this moment, I lost the life that I should have had. At this moment, and a lot of people do it. A lot of people do it. And it is so dangerous. It is so very, very dangerous. Oh, let me not shake the whole table here in front of me. There's also the way, and I'm going to keep this very short, because the same thing can be said about the way that we look ahead in time. Shaitan will also use that by giving us these senses of grandeur of like we are in control of more than what we're actually in control of. So it's the same thing but looking ahead of time, right? So if we're thinking ahead and we say this has to happen and it has to happen by this age, or it has to happen in this way, again, lack of surrender, complete lack of surrender. We're not thinking about how could I surrender to Allah's will. We're spending time in stress, in anxiety, worrying about the future because, oh no, I'm going to turn 30 soon and I'm still not married, or I'm going to be 35 and I still live with my parents, or I'm going to be 40 and I still don't have children, or whatever. Those are just like some very similar but like still very random examples, but it could be anything, right? If I'm not a millionaire by 35, if I haven't made it by 23, all of these things that we're all thinking of. And as a result, what do we then do? Because the deadline is moving closer to us, and shaitan uses that as well to get in between you and Allah, is I see this person is worrying a little bit too much. They're thinking a little bit like they're stressing over like the quote unquote deadline that they've set for themselves. So I'm going to sneak in there and I'm going to really emphasize how time is moving quickly and the deadline is moving ahead. And look, Allah is not showing up for you. Look, it hasn't come yet. Why are you even asking Allah for this thing? Because clearly He hasn't given it to you. And again, creating these little sprinkles of worry and doubt and frustration and basically making you feel like Allah isn't showing up for you. Allah doesn't want success or happiness for you. And at some point, if you again allow these little seeds to be planted and start growing roots, at some point you're going to start believing it. You're going to start believing it. And that's going to change the way you move forward as a Muslim. It's going to change the way you approach Allah. It's going to change the way you make salah. It's going to change the way that you make dua and ask for things from Allah, because your whole subconscious belief system is rooted in Allah doesn't want me to succeed. Look, I'm so worried about my future and Allah is not showing me that He's showing up for me because you haven't surrendered the outcome. Because you are more stuck in how you want the thing to be than saying, yeah, I would like it to be this way, but if Allah has a better plan, then so be it. Khair, inshallah. Of course, khair, because it's from Allah, right? Shaytan is sneaky. Shaytan is very sneaky and he's very clever. Very, very, very clever. And we have to be aware of that, because it's not just about the big outwardly sins. It's also the sins that we can be committing in our minds, with our mindsets, with the way that we're approaching Allah, by having these doubts, by thinking of Allah in a specific way, by thinking about ourselves in specific ways, of potentially thinking I'm powerful enough to have a say in certain things. You can have a say in this moment by using your free will. But for the future, in the past, that ain't none of your business. That's your business when you get to it in the future, if you get to it in your future. And in the past, you already had that chance. You already had your chance. So learn from it and then move on, you know. All right, my darling, that is what I had to share with you today. I hope that there was something in this episode that you could take away from it and apply it to your own life. Maybe share it with someone. If, again, you know somebody who feels a little bit stuck in something specific in their life, share this episode with them. Okay, have this conversation with them. Help them out, you know. That's what we're here for as well, you know. As an ummah, we're here to sort of help each other grow. So if you notice that somebody in your life, or again, even if it is yourself or someone in your family, feels stuck in one specific thing, have this conversation with them, share this episode with them, and then have that conversation, have that talk with them, and then see if that does anything for them as well in the way that they're thinking, right? Because it's a very slippery slope. Okay, my darling, thank you so much for joining me for another episode. Don't forget that if you've got suggestions for episode topics, anything like that, feel free to send me a DM. It's best if you can do it over on my Instagram, because I can send voice notes back and I prefer that. I can hear my cat outside. He's come back from his little walk, so I'm just going to go and open up for him. Perfect timing, alhamdulillah. But send me a DM over on Instagram if you've got any topic suggestions, and I will get back to you there, inshallah. I will see you in Thursday's episode, inshallah. But until then, my darling friend, please don't forget to live in love.